effortless. All part of the process.
Right.
And not a Sony computer.
They did have Linux on the PlayStation 2.
God, jeez.
Yeah, but it wasn't really usable, was it? Let's be honest.
Man doesn't care as long as it can run Linux.
Yeah.
He's buying it.
That's what it says. Just like the Steam Deck.
Have you actually
Actually,
ordered
really.
a Steam Deck, or are you just planning on?
No, I did pre-order. I'm waiting for it to just hit my bank account and ship.
And we are live.
Hey.
On the
Hello,
bombshell
everyone.
that Matt loves Linux, which is
Shock.
going to be his new Twitter handle, all one word. Yes, we are Pixel Pints. We are the only podcast that talks about two things that we enjoy, which is good beer and video games. We're not here to promote drinking. Please drink responsibly. Please podcast responsibly, as Joe Rogan found out. And it's not just about getting different points of view. It's about spewing stuff that may influence well-standing scientific material, which is why in the UK we are having growing rates of measles in children. Because the anti-vax movement is threatening children's health. But it's okay, because someone online on YouTube said that vaccines cause autism. The stupid bastards. But there's no politics in this show, like there is no politics in video games. You know what there is in video games? Fun and microtransactions. That's it.
That's fair.
That's,
What an intro.
and soon to be NFTs, but we won't touch on that because it's all a scam. Before I introduce our very special guests on this very special crossover episode, where two people have, I'm assuming, used GPS data and/or a hard copy map and compass to escape from a forest of their own polygonal design to join us on this show. Matt, what's the temperature in Las Vegas?
Oh shit, I didn't have that pulled up. I was going to tell you about how I had to wake up early today to go take my dog to the vet. It's fucking crazy. She was making weird noises when she was breathing, and it woke me up. And so we called the vet, and they're like, all right, we'll bring the dog down. So we brought the dog down, and the vet goes, yeah, it's a reverse sneeze. So what the fuck is a reverse sneeze? This is like 6:30 in the morning.
My dog's. Yeah.
It's like 6:30 in the morning, and she's like, well, how old is the dog? I'm like, 14. She's like 13 or 14, like 13 or 14 months. I'm like, no, 13 or 14 years. Like I have to feed this dog pills every day. Like I thought she was dying, and she's like, no, it's a reverse sneeze. You're okay.
There's a cool little trick where you put your hand over their nose so they can't breathe through their nose, and then it sort of they get.
Are we
freaked
talking
out
about
and
killing
they
a
go,
dog right
and
now?
then
Is that what we're doing?
they start to breathe.
Where's Evan?
properly.
Evan doesn't want to hear this.
We are on completely the wrong podcast for any talk about
Yeah,
any
this
kind
is
of.
the wrong podcast.
Yeah.
Although I did see on Twitter a friend of Corey and Brian, shout out to Corey and Brian, terribly sorry to see your a starting point go, but you've got to take that Chris Pratt money. Just
Chris
sell the
Evans
name of the show
money.
to him.
Chris Evan.
Chris. Yeah,
Yeah,
whichever.
Chris
Who
Evans.
cares? No one cares
Chris
about
Evans
the
is a much
MCU
better
anymore.
person than Chris Pratt. Let's just.
Yeah, well, just take his money, stop your show. But I did see on Twitter someone woke up to find a cat in their bath, except for the fact that all their doors and windows were closed and they don't own a cat.
That would be a problem.
So Matt, you've one, not told us what the temperature in LA is, and two, didn't use the time telling us the story about.
Well, he
Daisy.
doesn't know. He doesn't know the temperature of LA because he's in.
He's in Las Vegas.
It's
Well, you
16.
can look-
It's 16 C in LA.
Thank you very
But
much.
but we're supposed to
17,
hit. It's supposed to be a major high here. We're in a major heat wave. So it's gonna be the hottest Super Bowl on record. 90 degrees Fahrenheit, which is probably, I think 84 was the last time it was that hot, warm.
Well, before
it's
we
supposed to be 22.
ask Vin and Chris their Super Bowl predictions, the blank look on both their faces.
I know.
Yeah.
Mitch, how are things in LA?
Things are good. Things are crazy. I'm trying to find a process of a new place to live while I'm interviewing for a new job, and I have to go on vacation in 1 week and a day from today. So a lot of stuff I gotta get done.
Hang on. Do you have to go on vacation,
have to.
or do you want to go on vacation?
At this moment, I don't know if I want to go because I want to make sure I have a place to live when I come home, because I got to find a place by the end of the month with a roommate. So, but we sent our application and I think we'll be okay. So just a lot of things in wait, and it causes stress, and I just want it to all be over, you know? And then I can go on vacation and relax and, you know, enjoy the sun, all that kind of stuff. But
You're in LA. Isn't that just permanent sun?
It
right,
is,
and-
but it's a little chillier this in the wintertime. We have a heat wave right now, but I'm gonna go down to Mexico, so that's gonna be more fun.
I'm sure there's a song about that, but it doesn't spring to mind right now. Dan,
Oh, Mexico. There you go.
Dan, how's things with you now that there are no masks at all in use anywhere?
Good.
Great, nice to hear.
Yeah, good. Lincoln's 9 degrees and raining. Standard February weather. I'm going to enjoy my half-term holiday as much as I can. And it's nice to be back on after a bit of a break.
Well, it's disappointing that Scotland played like shite yesterday.
Yeah, that's very disappointing.
But it wasn't so bad because I didn't get to see it because I was out enjoying myself as a pre-birthday dinner. Yay me. Right, getting to our very special guests, starting with a man who's more viral. If he were to be more viral, he would have to come with his own World Health Organization warning. Mr. Vin Hill.
Hello.
Vin, how are things in Canada? Have you been supporting or not supporting truckers? I think is the main question.
I only found out about this like yesterday. For the first time, I looked at my phone and I was like, police are removing truckers from the US border in Canada. What the hell is happening? And then I read the article and I was like, what is happening? So, yeah.
Well, the crazy part about that is like only like 5% are not vaccinated. So it's a very small portion trying to speak for a larger group that already has done it. So like it doesn't even matter. It's so weird.
Yeah, I did. The whole thing like passes me by, but yeah, I only just saw the story yesterday, so I've yet to form an opinion on truckers. But it is cold here in Montreal. It's really, really cold. It's like minus 18°C, snow as always. So it could be.
I was going to do your introduction in French, but then I realised that I don't speak French, nor do I have the inclination to learn.
All I
That
know
would be a
is
problem.
voulez-vous acheter à Venois ce soir?
No. Voulez-vous accoucher?
Avec moi.
Avec.
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 I'm a French person who's watching this.
Avec.
Just been like, what is happening?
Accoucher avec
And-
moi.
The fact you're asking all of us to take you home tonight and sleep with you is interesting.
The only thing I remember from French class is "Skilele se bebe," which is that baby is ugly. It's the last,
I
that's the
can
only
imagine there's definitely a use case for that somewhere. Somewhere.
Been said, yeah.
Yeah.
And finally, but not least, Chris, welcome from somewhere where it's mysterious because you make pixels out of acrylic, but you and Vin never actually talk about where you do your indie stuff, or have I missed that?
No, I guess we don't talk about like location. I'm just like home based for my indie stuff, so I just do that at home in Toaster in Northamptonshire. So that's where I'm based.
Nice.
You're
Just near the
not too
F1
far
track.
away from Dan.
Yeah, just near Silverstone.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, so now I've got good friends who live in Toaster. It's cool.
Oh God, get a room.
Oh,
Jesus.
breaking news, fellas. Breaking news. It has been revealed that Pixel Pints has pulled a Microsoft and we are acquiring Polygon Forest.
So
You
does
just-
that make
This is how
you
we're
the
finding out.
Microsoft? Is that so? Mitch
Yeah.
is the Microsoft now. Okay.
He's
Yeah,
Mitch is Microsoft now. Mitch is Phil Spencer.
I'm spending
In
big.
which case he will have to.
I'm spending daddy's money. That's what I do best. That's all I do. I spend daddy's money. I don't do anything except spend daddy's money.
Mitch is what he hates the most. He's become who he hates the most.
Well, if I had that much money, I would not. I would spend just daddy's money all day long and not work.
Absolute Mitchdom corrupts Mitch salutely. But thank you both very much for coming on and letting us undermine your competency in whatever it is you do for a living.
That's fair.
And with a group of know-nothing idiots who know nothing about how to make games. Which we learned, Matt, you've never made a game, have you?
No, I never have.
It's because you can't do it on Linux. That's why it's really hard.
Right, so, Mitch, transition. Does
Oh.
anyone have any beers or beverages they want to talk about?
Well, I have 4 for you guys to pick me to drink one.
I've got 2 and I'm
Are
just going
they-
to drink them both, because that's how
are they
I roll.
Are they the same fruit beers that you've had for?
Nope, these are brand new
They're
beers.
new ones.
A special crossover episode deserves brand new crossover beers.
Ah, very thoughtful.
Oh yeah. Okay, let's see what we got here. So this is it's a San Diego. It's called oh, there goes the ice casing. Ballast Point Brewery.
Oh, Ballast Point. Yeah, they're good.
So there's a long fang.
I prefer Mitch's pronunciation.
Yeah, I like my
Ballast.
pronunciation better.
Alas.
Ballast.
Ball Ass Point Brewery.
Ball ass. You know, just like haul ass. There you go. So we have an Indian Pale Ale. We got
2 favorite things.
a lager. We got Indian Pale Ale with grapefruit.
Okay.
And then the first one I was showing was a lager. So, which one, fellas?
I think
I put the
since-
lagers away,
Fruit.
and
Lagers away.
The one with the balls and ass. Like, I think that's.
Oh, yeah, that one, yeah.
So it's I guess we have the 2 Indian Pale Ales. Like they're actually both the theme is fish, so they're all
Yeah. It's nautical.
can.
and then this is the one with grapefruit.
Do the grapefruit one. I think you'll probably like it.
Okay. I do have to show, where is it? There is one of, oh, this one's cool. This one is eating another fish.
Nice.
So, yeah, I'll go with the grapefruit one. If I have time, I'll drink another one. But I gotta play tennis later, too, so I'm not just gonna sit on my bum all day long there, Keith.
It'll make it better. Just drink them all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My reflexes
tennis.
really would be great, you know?
It's
Yeah.
tennis, not slash ball.
You'll think you're great, even if the person you're playing with doesn't. So it's
Exactly.
okay.
There it is.
My partner
play
would be
terribly.
my partner would be very upset with me, being like, "What the f are you doing?"
Like, it was in.
Right, whilst Mitch is opening, my beer is sponsored by Mild Xenophobia.
Wow.
What the?
Wow.
Wow, the
So-
rainbow sherbet sour.
I feel dizzy.
Rainbow Sherbet
Guaylo.
Sour from Guaylo Brewing.
Ah, yes, the Guaylo brewer. Interesting.
What have I got?
Yes,
I've got Freak Ale Works, Phantom Pale
Nice.
Ale. It's just one from Aldi.
Nice.
But it's
The
like
expensive
I think
stuff.
it's a Beavertown like knockoff.
Yeah, it looks like they like to do
Gamma
those.
Ray. Yeah, it's a Gamma Ray knockoff, so it's nice. Yeah.
Right, Mitch.
He is not happy about that. You can tell
No,
by his face.
it's pretty good. It's actually pretty good. I like it.
All right.
I'm used to way more weedy beers, and this one is definitely not weedy at all. So
Yeah.
it's dry. If I say anything, it's drier. It tastes drier, but it's got it doesn't taste the I don't taste the grapefruit, but I smell it.
That's what. Yeah. That's what
Must-
a lot of my PAs are like.
You must, yeah. I guess it's more of a aroma.
Badly
Still
badly
good.
brewed.
I dig it.
Right, so this is Rainbow Sherbet Sour
Sour.
Ale. 4.5% It's 10 IBUs, and I fully expected to hate it, and I don't.
Oh shit! This is a 7.
Which is gonna be drunk.
Good. Well, you're only going to need that one, and you'll be having a great time playing tennis.
I'm having a great time.
So yes, you're meant to get hints of raspberry and lemon, which you definitely do.
The snozberries taste like snozberries.
This would actually be, but then it's got a really bitter finish, which is
Is it sour? Is it...
quite contrasting to the sourness that you initially get, and then it goes bitter and then goes sour again. It's actually quite a complex. Christ, I sound snobby. I sound like Evan.
You don't sound like it. I don't think it's possible.
Well, there's some
You don't
proof
have your
that-
wife coming in and out of the show constantly,
No.
especially when he mentions his wife won't be in the show anymore.
To be fair, also the other thing is you haven't got 5 glasses to like pull down to compare which one's the best one to pour your beer into.
Yeah, so this is the second sour beer that I've had in a couple of days that I fully expected to hate, and it's actually really refreshing. And at 4.5%, this would be a really, really nice summer beer not to drink in the middle of February.
Yeah.
Right, Dan, do you have anything? Chris, would you like to give us some tasting notes off your knockoff?
I should have something, but I don't. I'm just failed.
All that time away and you fail us.
Sorry.
Yeah, I was up until.
I mean, the knockoff is good knockoff. I don't know what to say. It tastes like good.
It's like a knockoff.
Zesty.
Right.
Yeah.
Tastes like chicken.
Right, so Matt, Vin, I assume your coffee is going down well.
Yeah, I've literally got a non-alcoholic Irish coffee. I think that's the best way to describe it. Tastes like coffee.
Yeah, it's too early for me to start drinking because I didn't.
Even on Super Bowl Sunday?
Well, I was up until 3 playing Edge of Eternity, and
I was up till 3 playing Sifu.
yeah, and I stopped because I ran out of beers, and I was like, oh, shit. And I looked at the time, and I was like, what
Beer
time
is
it?
required to play
That
this
is
game.
the thing, right.
that's Berghoff, I think you're explaining how someone needs to play this game. You can't play the game without a beer. I don't know if that's a good thing about the game or a bad thing about the game.
No, dude, it's just solid. Like it's rare for a game to hit me and take me, where 3 hours feels like 30 minutes. Like I look at the clock, like, oh shit, the time just went by.
I think a certain Commander Shepard might have some words with you about playing that as opposed to the Mass Effect Legendary Edition, which I also know you own.
I know, but it's free on Game Pass, and I've been curious about it, and they just came out with the console version, so I had to check it out.
You didn't have to. You chose to. You made the decision to do so. Yeah. No one was forcing your hand. They're Willis.
Right, so moving on, I'm going to really struggle to keep you lot on track, aren't I? So it was very, very nice for Vin and Chris to accept an invitation onto this show with a bunch of know-nothing, development ignorant, podcast operating people from around the world.
We've got to educate the public somehow. That's the only
Bottle jobs.
Well, if you want to educate the public, we regularly get double-digit views.
The public at large.
So
we get a very similar amount. I think it's
you have way more subscribers than we do on YouTube.
Yeah, but we don't get as many views. Like so, yeah, we might have the people coming back, but they don't click.
Watch anything.
They also do have prettier graphics than we do.
Yeah, Mitch, sort your life out.
Sorry, I keep forgetting to make the thumbnails. I had to. Yeah.
So there was a couple. There was a couple of things on.
Advice: get a concept artist to join your podcast, and then you don't have to worry about drawing.
We have
one.
That's
that's how he made these graphics for us. But to make the thumbnails is I don't want to ask him to do that. So I've been doing them myself, but then I keep forgetting to do it.
Yeah, Michael's busy flitting from the UK to Romania to build mobile games to gouge people for microtransactions, because what else do mobile games do?
And make record profits and give none of it to their employees.
See, now you're talking about CD Projekt Red.
I think I'm talking about every company.
Yeah.
So there was a couple of things on I think it was your last 2 episodes that sparked questions in my mind that I wanted to kind of draw out from your brain, since you understand how the system works. So I think your last episode, you guys were talking. No, your second to last episode, you were talking about BioWare magic, which isn't actually magic at all. It's just crunch. And
it's also a hope and a pray.
And
that things come together correctly. That's what the magic. At least that's my interpretation of the magic.
Yeah, it gives some context to it. It's basically like BioWare for years just like delivered stuff at last minute through crunch, and just somehow they just kept sticking the landing and getting 9s and 10s on every game that they put out, and then it just all came to a head when it came to Anthem, and it didn't land that time, and then that's when everyone looked at it and was just like, what the hell is happening over there? And then it all came out, and that's where the BioWare magic sort of quote came from. But yeah.
I think the other thing is. Oh, sorry.
No, go for it.
I think the other thing that BioWare magic is, it doesn't really go over it in the interview with Mark Darrah, but it's what Vin's told me this before. It's like everything comes together at the last minute. So you could work on something and working on something, and it just appears like you're not getting anywhere. And then when all the art happens, and when all the resolution happens, and when all the sound gets dropped in at the last, the last hurdle, the last stretch, it appears that your productivity is spiking, but it's not. It's just been a steady progression of work. It's just the illusion that it all comes together at the last minute when it's not really the reality.
And this is what I wanted. Shut up, Matt. Jesus, don't talk over people. It's rude.
Almost like we planned it.
So, right, hands up if you have a formal project management qualification and worked in projects for the last 15 years.
Okay.
Did you just do that just to make yourself look good?
No, I just did it for context. So
you're also saying that you're old, is what you're also trying to say.
Yes, I am. We'll get to that. We'll get to that later on when we do some fun stuff. I have worked on various different projects over the last 15 years. I have never, ever worked on a single project that is planned how you're taught how to plan a project.
Yeah.
And from my experience and everyone else who I know who works in project management, and production and project management seem to be very similar disciplines, I would work on the assumption that the games industry work on the same basis, which is, here's your deadline, work backwards in order to meet it. Not what project management tells you to do, which is you're starting from here, work through and tell us how much time and resource you need to deliver this product to this level of quality within your budget. Am I correct in my assumption?
You are, but it doesn't quite go that way with games whatsoever, because you can't think about it as a whole project. You have to look at it in terms of the milestones, but even like smaller than that sometimes. Like, so you're really managing the slices of a project rather than the whole thing. I mean, you can guess, I guess, but like as soon as something happens with one of them slices, then you have to reassess everything, because it can be systemic and affect every single one of the other slices. So something that you think will take 2 months can actually take 6, because it's affected everything else. So,
which if I do my research right, and you can correct me, is like you evaluate these things in 2-week sprints, in a sense of just assigning the project specifically, and then that sprint, you go through all the things, and then you evaluate each week as you're going through those things of, is there hurdles coming into play, where you kind of use the sprints to anticipate the issues that come into play that could be systemic, so that they don't become longer problems.
Yeah, pretty much. It's just because when you get good project managers, they can sort of predict how much it's going to systemically affect things going forward. So like when you get a really good games development manager, they know what the hell they're doing. They normally like detect these things pretty early on and be like, this is going to be a huge problem in 6 months' time when we get to doing this other thing. So like you get a sense of them, but it's impossible to say, okay, we're going to start this game now, and it's going to come out in 2025, on this date, and if we plan everything right, it will happen. It's just that is an impossibility that gamers sort of believe that like there's this mythical thing of like, well, if you just plan it right, it'll work, right? It's like, no, it's not. This doesn't work that way. I wish it did, but it just doesn't. So
that's where robust change management needs to work, and it seems as though BioWare failed in that for whatever reason. They had such a vision for Anthem so set that any of the problems they encountered, they weren't willing to pivot.
Well, that's even more true with a project if you like never done it like that before. Like Anthem is entirely new
EA
type
were forcing an RPG company to make a third-person ongoing live service game. Is that what you're saying, Mitch?
Basically.
No, it's not more as the company's forcing them to do so, but like when you take on a project that's completely new that does add more time to a project, it's like you can't say like, oh, this team has made RPGs really well and in space throughout how many Mass Effect was like 10 years basically. And so then it's like, okay, tackle this kind of project. And when you try to do something like that, it's like you can't just say, oh, this game's going to come out in 5 years, because you might have to hire new people, like similar to Guerrilla Games. They hired a person that knew quest design really, really well. And I only know this because it was in the No Clip documentary, but they hired somebody that not only did plot really well, but knew how to tie it into side quests and knew, okay, we need to tackle major quests first, and then you can divvy down and do all the side quests as extra stuff, and whatever you don't get to, that's okay, because it's side stuff. It's not the main stuff. So like that's something they never had to think about in perspective, and so that's something when you tackle a new project like makes total sense.
Well, doesn't some of it have to do with all of the different parts that are coming together too? Like all the different departments have their own deliverables that they have to...
Matt, I want to pause you there for a second, because I wanted to get Chris's take on how does the kind of project management side of it work as at an indie level? Because the whole point about, for a point of clarification for anyone watching or listening who didn't understand what Mitch was talking about when he was talking about sprints. Sprints comes from a specific style of project management called Agile, which was created during the peak of app development, which allows you to work on something for a very short period of time. If something is or isn't working, you can then progress it or bin it. But it's become much more. That's a massive oversimplification, but it's become so much more mainstream now that everyone thinks every project can be managed in an agile way, which it can't. Equally, you can't manage.
Keith, technically, just to correct you, the video game industry doesn't tackle mainly in Agile and Scrum. They tackle in Waterfall. That's the main method that they like to use. At least, that's what my been reaching out to companies, and a lot of them ask you to be understanding of waterfall style waterfall style. The beer. Jesus Christ. Yeah. It's just
hitting him.
I know. The waterfall style in regards to understanding project creation. So, but they can answer it more.
Which started in the construction industry. So, from Chris, your point of view, a kind of indie level, how does project management work? Can you actually be more, and I'm going to hate myself for saying this, agile?
Yes, indie devs I find can always be more agile than they actually are. But part of working in like a one-man team means that you can work on whatever's taking your fancy at whatever time, because I'm going to be the most productive when I'm doing things I want to do. In some ways it's kind of easier, in some ways you get more sidetracked. So I don't have to think about agile, because I don't have to work with other people. I don't have to think, are these people going to be done by X, Y, and Z so that we can sign off this milestone? So for example, I've done 50% of my levels, just blocking them out to get them ready for a playable state, and I'm now going back and doing a vertical slice to get the visuals kind of working and the sound working. So I'm doing it in a kind of roundabout way that's just taking my fancy. The work all needs to get done. I might drop some stuff might get lopped off and thrown in the bin, and it might get more compacted down. And that's not terrible because I'm not wasting any money. I'm only wasting my own time. But as long as I'm finding it interesting and engaging and I'm learning, then it's actually all useful. So that's the benefits of doing it. The downside and the things that I get caught up on and the things that indie devs kind of talk about a lot is just noodling, just wasting too much time going down a rabbit hole, feature creep, just like thinking, oh, I can add a few features here and there. Haven't got any producers that are going to breathe down my neck and say, no, we haven't got time. It's a passion project, so why the hell not? So those are the pitfalls for the indie dev. We don't have like producers keeping us in line. So it's a very, very different kettle of fish, I think. A AAA action adventure game. I think AAA studios can take good practices and learn from each other, whereas indie devs, sometimes it just comes down to whatever project you're working on. There'll be a completely different method that will be the most productive. But finding whatever that method is, again, is difficult because with indie games, a lot of the time what you're making is completely unique. Like I can draw from other indie games as influence, but what I'm making myself, I think, is fairly unique, which is one of the reasons why I'm making it. And therein lies the problem, in that no one knows the best way to make the game I'm making, except I can guess, and I'll know when I finish what would have been the best way of doing it. So yeah.
Well, when you write that book,
yeah. How to make my game.
I
might do something like tutorials or something. Post it on to see what.
It would be interesting to see your annual performance review from yourself.
Strong words of myself. Yeah, strong words of myself. I've been slacking, and yeah, I hired myself. I didn't really know how to code, so I've hired a complete novice, which is really bad, advice. Don't hire a novice that doesn't know coding. For a coding position, it's just you just come across a lot of pitfalls, and they spend all their time just watching YouTube tutorials on how to do this code. So yeah, he knows I can see him, but
yeah. I've heard he's a dick though, so yeah. No, but like to that though, Chris, I think there is like a point in indie dev when it comes to that though, where if you're an indie dev and you're constantly like getting lost in what you're doing, it's actually not a bad idea to sort of take the AAA mindset sometimes when it's indie games, because I need the milestone thing, I need the sprints when I'm working on my own stuff, even as a solo dev, because I need to stay focused. Otherwise, I will just meander and wander around and not ever finish the project. That's why like games like Owlboy took 10 years to make. It's because he was just like, I'll work on this for a bit. That's why Stardew Valley, if you ever read about that, like it took him like 6 years or something to make, and he was just constantly, I'll remake these pixel sprites for 6 months, and he just did that over and over again. It worked out for him. Obviously, he's a multi-millionaire now, but yeah, it's just. Yeah,
there's also a smart way to approach it. Being like, there is a way to approach it as a small developer team, without a doubt, because you could just go like, hey, I really like working on this aspect of my game. Well, what you can do is just nook cranny it, feed it into your sprints. So like, say you're doing a 2-week sprint of saying, I want to complete 3 separate milestones. And you can, like, the bigger objective of the thing you really enjoy, which is the level design, being like, okay, well, I'll focus on one level today. One level for the 2-week sprint, but I also need to get done these things, which I don't find as fun, but at least I'm going to get the satisfaction, because that's part of Agile and Sprint is the philosophy of it is you as a team, when you're making the decision of what to work on your 2-week sprint. I'm only speaking this from experience of not working as game development, but I've taken multiple certifications in Agile and Sprint trying to get into the video game industry. So that's the only reason why I know some of the basic aspects of Agile and Sprint. But some of the aspects of it is making sure that the team is interested in what they're actually working on, because it does increase productivity, but you do have to layer in things that they may not be as excited about because they do have to get done. And if you do all the fun things first, then the production might drop dramatically because you are not working on things you're passionate about or really enjoying.
Honestly, I think the biggest problem with all of like the sprint stuff and project management and all that, and it's very easy to see like on an indie level as well, and that is project scope. Like that's the biggest thing, which makes all of these problems more than anything. It's like whenever I meet an indie dev and they're saying things like, oh, I'm making an MMO with an indie team. It's like, that game is never getting made and way too big. You're never going to finish it. It's like no indie dev has ever finished an MMO, but they're all working on one apparently. And it's the same for the AAA market. Like, if their scope's too big and if they've just got this way over ambitious idea, like, it's much easier to build upon something than it is to strip stuff away.
Well, and you think, but you also want that mind to try to expand as far as possible. Like, an example would be the God of War game from Cory Barlog in 2018. Like, apparently that whole
shut up about it. We know it's your favorite game. Jesus.
I only know because I only know this because obviously the documentary, and this is all stuff that I like do my research on for game developers. And oh Jesus, what it was it was one of the areas, the one with the angels, the dark elves and the light elves. I forgot what area it's called.
This is your favorite game, really? Okay.
It's been a while. But anyway, they said that's that area with the dark elves. It wasn't Muspelheim. It was.
It's Muspelheim.
Was it Muspelheim?
Muspelheim. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I should know. I'm working on a game with Viking mythology at the moment, so that's stupid, isn't it?
But anyway,
just letting you figure it out.
But anyway, so the thing that he mentioned in it, that the whole conflict between the dark elves and the light elves, that actual map was like 3 times bigger than what actually you played it in, and they had to cut it in mid development because they realized the scope is too big. And that's the really, like, that's the tools of a producer to be able to come in and say, okay, you know, we do have to cut this. Like, the game will still be great, but you have to cut this here because one, we have deadlines, and 2, it's a balance.
Mitch, what you're talking about is, and I've had this from my experience working with creative people. I'm a more analytical minded person than I am a creative. So
I would be on the same point with you as well. I can't create.
So I'm never going to be able to do what Chris and Vin do for a living. What I can do is put parameters around how those people work. Mm-hmm. And what you're talking about, in particularly, again, this is me hypothesizing rather than saying something from experience. If you've got a group of people who are all creatives, who are all wanting to work towards some kind of shared vision, without someone who can actually kind of pause that thought and say, actually, you need to pare this back because otherwise you'll never deliver anything. That can be very difficult, and you can end up in a mindset of confirmation bias. It's like, oh yes, we need to do this, or that doesn't look good enough, so let's redesign everything again. So you can end up with that kind of wasted effort, and you need someone to say, no, good is good enough.
So what you're saying is that BioWare should have hired a cat herder instead of a production manager.
Or just a better production manager.
I agree with Mitch. They just needed bad management. That's all. That's all. That's the only thing that causes crunch is bad management. That's it. That's the single only reason.
Yeah, and then the other element with that was like, the director left midway through the process of the game. That's a huge change for the development too. Like that's the vision. And that can change entirely the vision of what you're trying to create. But one last thing I'm going to mention quick before you hop in, because I'm going to cut you off like Burkoff. God.
That's just not fair. That's just mean.
Those are not acceptable.
But something I noticed in my research, in my searching to get into the games industry, is that I found that a lot of indie developers, and you guys can correct me if I'm incorrect on this one, is a lot of the times I see ones that have shipped at least one game always have at least one producer on staff. They may have more than one, but they always at least have one. I've noticed in all whenever I try to apply to those positions, is they always just had one at least, which I think might be to their benefit to help them ship the game.
So Chris, who's your producer?
So Chris, you need to employ yourself as producer and you'll be fine.
Dude.
So you can just give yourself another title.
Hey,
promotion.
I'm looking.
No, that's the joke, isn't it? At the end of an indie game, the credits creative direction.
It's all the same person.
And then it's producer Chris Jarvis, illustrator Chris Jarvis,
Director.
the whole thing.
Yeah, well, it might just be that you've heard of those indie games because they had a producer, and so the successful indie games are going to have more people than one-man band. Like, you can count on one hand how many sort of one-man band indie games are successful, and so having a producer as part of the team, I think it, like, maybe, the chances of it being successful are exponential the more people you have, I think, on a team. I think that's probably something. I don't know what the stats are, but that's what my guess is, just based on that information. Because it's so easy to make a game and go off and do something else when there's no one to answer to and no one to disappoint. So yeah, difficult.
Other than yourself.
To make a game, difficult to finish a game.
Oh, it's impossible.
Yeah.
It's nearly impossible to finish a game. Anyone can start making a game. Like, you can boot up Unity and look at a couple of tutorials, like a couple of Brackeys videos, and you're done. Like, yeah, I can make a character controller move. It's like, it's the easiest thing in the world. But shipping a game, it's nearly impossible, man. It's really hard.
Yeah, particularly with Sony's commercial side. I've heard they're a nightmare to deal with.
Not as
So,
bad as
Matt,
Nintendo, though.
yeah, Matt, go.
Also speaking
Nintendo will put
speaking of
anything on the
experience,
e-store.
That is fair. These days they will. You're right.
well, they'll put Vin's game on Nintendo eShop, so at least we'll get some sales no matter what. Well, at least it's an easy way to get your game in there no matter what. So, like, in case someone pushes back against you, you can just go, it's on the Nintendo Game Store.
Right.
Matt, I wanted to go back to your point, but from a slightly different angle, which is we know, particularly, we're going to pick Vin's brain, and then Chris can add some comedic value on how he's worked with himself during lockdown.
That's the real question, right?
I don't know.
Wow,
If I phrase it that way.
where's the hidden shiv that you just put in there and then right
The
there?
goal is not to embarrass the guests.
Yeah, seriously, do you want them to come back?
Well, I suppose that's up to them. They knew what they were getting into with me.
Well, I
Well,
was
they should have
hoping they'd invite us to their show, and I don't think that's going to happen now.
Well,
after that.
they might invite you all, but
Yeah,
I
we'll
might
do-
mysteriously not be free.
Right.
The invite got lost on its way.
But Matt, what you were talking about was the compartmentalization of game development.
Yeah.
So obviously that needs to happen because most large projects, you're not going to have all of the disciplines within a specific team. You'll need to have elements developed by different people and from Ubisoft, that could be different people from umpteen different time zones.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, I find it fascinating because it seems like the more a project scales up or the larger a team gets, the more that happens. The more there's divisions, and it's more like a bunch of developers working on one certain aspect of it, and then at the end is when everything just sort of gets pushed together and either works or it doesn't. And
But that's why producers are so important, because they're kind of that keel voice. I mean, they meet the reason why they're full-time employees is because they meet so often to make sure that the vision of the game is consistent throughout the entire time, that each element of it is going to match up with the other elements that they have. And that's why it's basically almost like their manager. It's like making sure, like, when you go to a rock concert, that you're going to the right one. Like, it's like, oh, I'm not gonna take my heavy metal band to a pop concert. Like, that's a stupid festival to take them to. But when you take all the pop concerts and you put them together, yeah, it's gonna be a kick-ass show. So, like, that
depends how eclectic their taste in music is. You're pigeonholing people here unnecessarily, my friend.
I disagree. I think it's a perfect analogy because how many people's tastes are eclectic? That's the point. That's why video games are not trying to be everything for everyone. They have a clear demographic, they have a clear genre, and any game that kind of tries to, they can fall down when they try to be the game for everyone. So
he just called me right, just so you know. You know that,
Yeah,
Keith.
Well,
There is
everyone-
the age-old like trope of if you're working in a video game studio, like, you're always wanting to work on the game that you're working on. Like, that's just the ongoing joke. And that's evident in the projects that people are given. Like, you look at Horizon Zero Dawn, it's a great example. Like, them guys are working on Killzone, and they made Horizon Zero Dawn like right after it. That's how much they were itching to get out of that bubble. So, and I think there's a lot of developers that are like that as well. So,
I can speak
Well,
from
even
personal
worse,
experience.
they had to make Killzone Shadowfall when they wanted to make Horizon, but they had to wait. Oh, that had to hurt worse.
yes.
you
I
can
mean,
see
paid
the
off.
color palette though, which is interesting.
Yeah, I was going to say they were
Yeah.
using. You can see from the vistas and
Yeah.
the god rays and things like that, which were evident in Horizon. They were using it as a test of certain elements of code.
Oh, you mean that godly engine that the Sir Hideo Kojima himself wanted?
Is that what he made Death Stranding with?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Of
he
all
did,
the
yeah.
engines, that's the one he wanted.
Yeah.
So, right, specifically, So I found working during COVID to be extremely problematic, and this comes back to what you guys were talking about on one of your episodes. You're saying if you've got a group of people together, I mean physically together, you can problem solve significantly quicker. So I know from my work, if I've got an issue, I've got to potentially message someone on Microsoft Teams. They may or may not get back to me. How urgent is it? Do I need to then phone that person? Do I need to set up a Teams call with them to talk it through, or can we just deal with it via Teams messaging? Do we need to share documents? All of those kinds of different things that previously I could have just walked from my desk down a flight of stairs and spoken to the person and got an answer.
Before you answer that question, I just want to pitch this into just in case. So from my knowledge on a certain thing that I can't talk about, they are forced to use a certain studio I know is forced to use actually multiple types of software for doing the same thing. Like they have to use Teams, but then they also have to use Zoom, and they have to use Slack because Slack is more convenient between each developer team, but they have to use Teams because the corporation forces that upon them, but they use Zoom because it's more convenient for everybody else. Do you run into that issue as well?
No. It's all... Yeah, I mean, we all just use Teams, basically. That's the majority of what people are switched over to, because it's like the corporate, more easier way to deal with sort of stuff.
My nonprofit used Teams, so that's what we used as well.
We use it for video as well. We use it for sharing stuff out. It's it's just the bog standard. Like most people I know in the industry are sort of dealing with that as well. Like I think some companies might have made deals with Zoom earlier on, sort of thing, and I think that's the reason why they're sort of forcing that upon their employees, maybe. But for the most part, it's just as long as people aren't using Discord, then Teams is that's second. Because that was definitely a problem at the start of the pandemic. People really didn't like using Skype from 2009, so they were like, I'm going to use this instead. And then eventually everyone's just like, all right, company-wide, we're going to switch over to Teams. It's the closest thing to Discord, and we can look after everyone.
I wonder if Sony's going to transfer not only the players, but their corporation to Zoom. I mean, not Zoom, Discord.
Jesus, Mitch,
that would be interesting.
Discord.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it's almost gone. 7% people.
Enjoy your tennis game.
Oh, jeez. I don't think I'll make it to the court. I'm like, stumble. Just kidding. Just kidding.
So one question for you, Vin, is I find it difficult to get an answer from someone who's in the same time zone as I am. What is it like, or has it been like when you're having to deal with people from multiple different time zones?
Yeah, it's weird because like the reason why I work in a game studio because I like working with people physically. It's always been like my preference. I worked at Ubisoft in Osaka for like 3 years, and then I switched over to freelance for a couple. And that 2 years, like I despised it. I really hated it. Like people think that it's like this nice liberating thing, but now that everyone's had a taste of that, they like, oh wait, no, this isn't as great as it sounded back in the day. Like a lot of people like the idea of working from home, but just that problem of not being able to get in touch with someone, not being able to physically walk up to their desk and poke them on the shoulder and be like, hey, can I get some feedback on the thing that I'm working on? Like that can kill a day of work sometimes, because if someone's busy and they're not at their desk or whatever, or they're in a meeting and you message them on Teams and they don't reply to you, like you burn half a day sometimes, which is kind of vital in games development, especially for like concept artists, because we normally only get like 3 days to finish a piece. So if we're stalled by half a day, like it can mess up our week basically. But that's slowly gotten better.
For clarification, and I obviously we don't want you to disclose something you can't disclose. Are you guys solely at Ubisoft Montreal remote, or can you choose to go in, or what's your kind of situation because of COVID?
I think that information's available pretty freely. No, it's a hybrid model.
Okay.
While the government like provides it, like if you want to work 100% from home, you can. If you want to work at the office 5 days of the week, then you absolutely can as well. So it's really up to you. How that's going forward in long term is very much up in the air, and it's for every game.
What do you choose personally right now?
Yeah, so are you going in because you said you don't like to at home?
Right. At first, I was going back to the studio. The second that they said, yeah, you can go back, can return to work, I was like, right, dope. I'm going in. Went in, wore the mask, like did all the hand thing, got temperature checked every day. You walk onto the floor, like, cool. Back in the studio, you sit down, then you and maybe 2 other people on the floor of normally 400 people, and you're like, okay, why the hell am I here? Like nobody else is here.
That's what.
That's what I was gonna say because. Go ahead, Dan.
So it's a completely different industry, but that's what my brother said. He said his company said you can come back in. He was like, awesome, I can go see my colleague. And he said the 3 times he's been in, it's been him on the entire floor to himself. And he's like, what computer shall I pick today?
Yeah, it's really bizarre because like you're working on sometimes these massive AAA games and you just do not feel the power of it anymore. Because when you're in studio working on these games, like the motivation that you get from walking like by just this massive people that are all just busting ass every day, like everyone's really passionate about it, everyone's really excited about it. Like you got someone working on weather systems, or like you walk past someone asking physics engines and all this sort of stuff. You're like, yeah, this is cool. Like I feel like I'm contributing to something here. Like this feels really great. But now it's just you go into an empty studio and sort of like it's like you're detached from it at that point, which is the biggest demotivator for me personally. But yeah, I'm definitely in the minority. Like most people like working from home, so yeah.
I was gonna say of a place I know, it's quite similar in studio as well, where it is not as big of a number you would expect it to be of people coming back.
Yeah, it's really
small. That's common from most of the people who I know, other than teachers. So, Chris, how did that work for you? So, did you set up Zoom calls with yourself, or did you just talk?
How are you doing today? I'm great. How are you? I'm excellent.
Mirror. It was like, come on, pull yourself together. You can do this. Like, get your shit together, Chris. Come on. Like
the non-technology version of a Zoom is you standing in the mirror looking at yourself.
Yeah. Right. It's also the good definition for insanity. But yeah.
Yeah.
Not if it's productive.
But I didn't need to download, Teams, so that's a plus.
Did you order a volleyball to sit next to you just so you had a
I could have done
pair.
that. Yeah,
here,
ping
right.
pong ball. Yeah.
Right.
Cut myself and yeah.
I mean, if you're really that lonely, there's a thing you can buy bots to comment on your social media posts, and that will give you some friends.
Well, there was there's a web, I can't remember the name of it. It was on BBC Click, and they were talking about the rise of home working and more people setting up their own businesses being one-person industries. And what you do is you sign up and you basically commit to your calendar on this website. Say, I want to talk to 3 people today, and here's what I'm going to do during those 3 stints. And you look at other people's calendars, and it could just be someone doing a yoga lesson, or it could be someone doing a cooking class. But the fact that you go online and you commit in a calendar to doing something with that individual, so you could be coding at the same time as this person's baking a cake, but you've committed to doing that activity during that moment in time, and you're doing it with that person. So you're not technically alone, but you're doing disparate things, but you're talking to one another at the same time. So you're getting that interaction, but you're forcing yourself to be productive during that period of time.
Fascinating. It's kind of like a hacker spaces. I don't know if you've ever seen those, but they're just like community hacker spaces where people just go and they contribute to like different weird things. Like someone will be hacking a VCR from like 1983 or something, and someone else will be making LED stuff. But you're all like in the same community on separate things.
Yeah.
The only reason why they're there is that connection. So yeah, that's fascinating. It makes sense though.
I started to watch Twitch streamers and just have them on in the background, and then like every now and again interact with them when I'm just like doing something that I can do that's in my wheelhouse that I don't have to think about too much, and it's just sort of like autopilot, just to keep that, just kind of maybe try to get that human element involved with it as well, because otherwise it's just boring. So yeah, there's little things we can do, I suppose.
Yeah, the mental side of like working from home has just completely changed everything, because there's a lot of people that thought that they could probably handle it, but then when they're actually in the business of doing it 2.5 years into it, they're just kind of like, yeah, I really, really don't like this anymore. Like, I want to be in a studio again. And it's just, we got to face the reality that the game's going this way, but I think this is going to change the industry forever, unfortunately, in good and bad ways. But yeah, it's just, we're all going to have to get used to this normal.
Yeah, but I think companies can still find a way to make it still like a community, like still find ways to integrate the studios together. Like an example, like in my example, like if I were to work for a company, I would try to do the hybrid model. Like I would go in a couple days a week and then I would work from home a couple days a week, like jump in and jump out. So therefore I'm still getting that social interaction, but I'm getting that convenience of working from home. But then it's the studio can do like, hey, like let's mand that, you know, for these couple days on this month, like everybody needs to come in so we all can work together, and so that we do have, it's not as forceful as like, yeah, you have to come in every Thursday, but it's like maybe you come in like this day and this day twice a month where everyone does come in. Or I know some studios, I know one from friends that I know, still do social interactions together and pay them for the entire day to go do something. Like he took his entire department to Disneyland and that's what they did, or they went axe throwing, and that's a way to still keep that social while they're still working from home.
Yeah.
Well, someone else did that in this country as well. He was called Boris, and he threw a number of parties at his house for his mates.
Little did he know he might lose his job for it.
They were business meetings. They just like to get hammered. They just like to get hammered while they're negotiating what to do with the country.
I don't think as well. I mean, I think smarter when I have booze in my hands. That's what they're trying to say, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we liberated an entire country, basically from
over
the
tea.
Yeah.
That's true.
Right. So my last boring question, then I'm going to do some kind of fun stuff. So you guys were talking about crunch, and I posted a comment in your YouTube video about a documentary that was done about Grand Theft Auto, and I can't remember if it was 3 or 4 or 5. Who cares, really? Yes, they literally are all the same. Broom broom game, drive round. Oh, you can tweak your suspension. Great, well done. Who cares? The O-Tabs is rolling around, kind of scathing at me right now for listening to that. He loves his driving sims. But in that documentary, there were shots of the development floor, and there was sleeping bags, pillows, roll mats under the developers' desks. But for some reason, no one seems to be bothered that certain studios crunch and others also crunch. And that kind of brought me on to, well, how do developers deal with social media noise? And if it is noise, how do you tune it out? And if it's not noise, if it is sensible and valid for whatever reason, how do you actually bring that on board? Or is it just, that's social media, that's bound to be garbage, and we will insulate ourselves from that as much as humanly possible?
Let me add another question to it, just to add on the pile of the burger stack of questions. Is because of the from home aspect of game development now, does it not feel as much as crunch? Because it's not like you're, again, having a sleeping bag under your studio. You have a bed you can go to bed to. You're just working.
Well, Chris definitely has a bed in his studio. Because it's probably next to him.
Well, I guess it's more for Vin. I mean, he just shipped a game recently, so I guess that's maybe more of a question for him, because he did ship Rainbow Six Extraction recently. So
yeah, I guess for that, like for Mitch's question in particular, is just that's the main reason why I don't like freelance, is because you sort of get absorbed by the work, and it's not anything that's sort of forced upon you by the company or anything like that. It goes for anything really. But if you're working on something, because at the end of the day we're making games, it's not exactly hard labor. Time can fly by, and you're just like, oh crap, like it's now 6 o'clock at night. It's not 5 o'clock, and I've worked over an hour by accident. The problem with that, if you're working freelance or if you're working from home, even if you physically desk and sofa, because you know it's in the next room, you're constantly thinking about it. Like, oh, I really should have done that. I really should have done this. But if you work in a studio, because it's a physical, second you leave the building, it's gone. Like, you compartmentalize it mentally, and it's sort of out of the way, and you don't think about it for the rest of the day. And you go home, like, I sit down with my wife and we have a conversation or whatever, and nothing is bothering me. But like, some people aren't really equipped even to have an office, and that in the like that nagging constantly goes at you. So I don't know if it's anything to do with crunch per se. I think it's more to say that people don't know when to turn off.
So would you say then actually that maybe a traditional sense of crunch when it was happening in an office was potentially maybe even less detrimental to the people's mental health than at home, because there's none of them, they're never leaving?
It's tough with when it comes to crunch, and people's opinions on it are based around the games industry from 10 years ago, or 15 years ago, or 20 years ago. Like, the games industry has changed a hell of a lot since we teenagers, pretty much. So if you go look back at the making of Halo 2, it's a great example. Go and watch that documentary. It's absolutely fascinating. In retrospect, you're looking at all these young guys under 30, busting ass on this game, staying there until 3 o'clock and it's sort of like this, it's this positive view on crunch of saying, oh,
it's a labor of love,
having a great time, labor of love, like they're putting their energy into it, and just they're loving what they do. And we have to be honest about that and say, yeah, they were having a good time. They didn't mind crunch. They did see it as a badge of honor. They did enjoy it. But that, in today's sense, where people are a lot older, we've got kids, we've got wives, we've got families, we've got other responsibilities anymore.
Could you shut up about my age? Jesus.
I know, I'm sorry, man. You can just tell through the viewfinder. It's just...
His viewpoints do not match my lifestyle currently. I just want to make that clear. But I will say, from what I know as well, is it's like, it's not, how they phrase it is more as if, we don't want you to, you don't have to do it if you don't want to. It's that you may feel pressured because everyone else loves the project they're working on and wants to spend more time on it. And you may feel pressure to do so, but you don't have to if you don't want to.
Yeah, it's
that's
more
a
about,
slippery
like,
slope for me.
I get it, but at the same time, it's like they're telling you do have an option out.
But it's also, the difference is, Mitch, when they were going through this, like Vin said, they were leaving and part of flying. When it's in your house with you, you're like, after dinner, let me just get back on it and do one extra thing. You're more likely to do that than actually...
But that's a labor of love. You can choose to do that if you want to.
It's not necessary.
It's not required for you to go back to your computer to go do that, right?
From a practical standpoint, on something that I absolutely loathed working on, being at home basically gave some people the expectation that you were available whenever they wanted you. And so you need to be very clear as a manager that people need downtime. And Chris, you mentioned this on the show, that when you were talking about it, there are scientific studies that show productivity falls after 55 to 60 hours a week. We as individuals cannot work mentally draining. We can work more physically draining jobs, but mentally draining jobs, you're more than 55 to 60 hours, your productivity is going to crash. And then doing that ongoing is even worse.
I mean, I can relate to that and understand that. Like, my first job when I was the program manager of respite services for my organization, True Friends, back in like 4 years ago. No, sorry, that's not that long. 2 years ago is when I left that company. My boss's productivity was at like 2 a.m. And so I would get emails at 2 a.m. And yes, is there the pressure to answer that email right away, or be like caught off guard and partly frustrated because you're just like, why am I getting this email at 2 a.m? But what I did is I made it very clear to my bosses, like, you can send me an email at 2 a.m, but I will not respond to you until I'm in the office at 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm not going to respond to it because that's not where you're. And he goes, I don't care. That's fine. I'm just sending it because that's my productive time.
I've got no issue with people sending at that time, but there's no reason in today, and probably even 2 years ago, that they couldn't put a delay on arrival to when the day starts.
It's
Getting
really
back, someone receiving an email at 2 a.m., you're like, oh, you're more likely to do it at 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock, anything like that. You are going to respond.
It's less about that though. It's more about there's a law being put in place in Canada, and it's going to spread worldwide without a doubt. It's something called the right to disconnect.
Not post Brexit. Not with Jacob Rees-Mogg in charge.
Yeah, but this law in particular will spread worldwide because of the world that we live with, remote work and stuff like that. And the right to disconnect is basically a concept where you say, okay, if you're available between 9 and 5, if someone contacts you, they have got no right upon you to get a reply from you at any point. And that's a law in Canada right now. So like that's going to spread with that anywhere else in the world.
It's interesting that kind of thinking though, because if you look at Scandinavia, I've sat in God knows how many meetings where people talk about Scandinavian levels of productivity.
Right.
And yes, people in Scandinavia do work longer hours. However, they also seem to put in place the working conditions and mechanisms for people to actually feel like they want to work. So it was a really simple example that I was given at a presentation. This is probably going back about 8-9 years now, where a company managed to double their productivity in the space of a few weeks, and all they did was, as a ownership team, they went to all their members of staff and said, "Tell us what you would like to happen in the office." And they said, well, we'd like to change the office in this way. We'd like new desks. We'd like new chairs. Can we have a breakout area? All this kind of stuff. And they just said, yes. And they did it. And the staff were happy.
Shocking.
So they worked harder.
Right.
Yep. Happy staff, work harder.
Yeah, the more you're invested in the company, the more you want it to do well, the more you're going to work hard for that company. Even if the work is difficult, that you're willing to work harder for it because you want it to succeed, because you enjoy being there.
There's also a very interesting book called The Maverick, which is based on a Brazilian mine owner. The guy's a multi-millionaire, and he went and did a speech in the US to lots of mine and heavy industry owning people in the US. And he gave them this example about an honesty box. He has an honesty box, or he did when he was alive. He had an honesty box in all of his mines. And he used to fill it up every day with 1,000 rares. And he used to tell his foreman, if it's empty, fill it up with another 1,000 rares. If it goes empty again, fill it up with another 1,000 rares. Now, to this guy, 1,000 rares is nothing. But to some of the people who are working with them, that's books for their kids to go to school. That's hospital bills for their family. And so it meant so much more that he just trusted them that they could go in a completely judgment-free way and just take what they needed. And he was telling this to all of these American businessmen. And they apparently one of them just got up and walked out and said, I don't believe this horse shit.
Well, because all they care about is making themselves more money and not like what is.
But this guy was immensely rich. He was one of the richest people in South America.
Yeah.
But he knew that amount of money was pittance to him. But he trusted the fact that he would get the buy-in from people who worked for him, that he trusted them enough that they could just take the money, they wouldn't be judged for it, no one would ask them why they needed it. If you need it, just take it.
Cheap way to get money into where it needs to go the quickest means possible, I suppose, isn't it? Like whoever's going to take the money, they're going to be needing it the most in general terms.
And this was the thing. One of the criticisms that he faced, and I'm going way off topic, but I find this absolutely fascinating. A former manager of mine, who sadly died during COVID, put me onto this book, and I bought it off Amazon. As a result, I put it off, and then he died, and I thought, "Fuck it, I'm going to buy the book." And he was being quizzed And they're saying, well, what about fraud? And he's saying the staff will know if someone is stealing.
Yeah.
If someone's pulling in with a
Yeah.
brand new car that they already had, like a new Mercedes Benz, it's like clearly they didn't need it. Like if someone's got like 3 kids and she's talking about they're trying to go through college and she takes a little more out of the pot, obviously they're gonna know. Like it's like the employees will hold people accountable or obviously gossip and get out to the manager and you go, okay, this guy isn't using it for the right reasons. Let's talk to him and see if he's not using it. But it's just I don't and this is why I think like, you know, places like high tech companies or even something like game studios are successful in some ways, the higher end ones, because you know they do things to make their employees happy. They pay for, not all, but some pay for all your medical care. Some pay for all your taking care of your dog in the studio, or they have snacks and food freely available to you. Like,
not Activision. People can't afford to use the canteen there, apparently, if you're a QA tester.
I said not all. I said some.
Well, that's because Bobby Kotick is a scumbag and he ran a toxic company and now he's won capitalism.
And Big Phil bought him because he likes that kind of mentality, right?
No, he's going to change it. We trust in Big Phil here, unless you're an absolute Sony pony, which is one of the hashtags that Vin has blocked on Twitter. Right, Chris, specific question for you.
Genuinely.
When you launch your game,
Like I said, one more question. Now you're doing another one.
I know, but this is going to be a quick one, and it's going to be a jokey one, and we're going to transition very quickly into some fun stuff.
I'll hold you to that. I'm patiently waiting.
So, Chris, when you launch your game and become a tech company in your own right, how much of the £40 million that was paid out to Rockstar last year do you think you're going to take a share of?
Oh.
So this is the government scheme in the UK to encourage high-tech industry that gave Rockstar 40 million. Well, it was 30. I think it was 38.2 million pounds. The year before that was 37 point something. Just for being based in the UK. So how much of their market share of that government scam do you think you can get your hands on?
I probably wouldn't qualify. I'd have to check it. So
Well, so if you posted yourself as all of the different job titles that we were going through earlier, you probably employ about 40 people.
You can do that. You go to a company's house and you just put yourself down in the position.
down as everything. I'm the treasurer. I'm the CEO.
Exactly.
MD.
And you'd think if you just give if you give $500,000 to double the amount of people like that, they might have a better life than to give it to a company like Rockstar. That's
Who sold another 5 million copies of the same bloody game? Right,
Do they really
we're
need
moving
that
on.
money?
Yeah, but they sustain the Lincoln economy being based up here. You see?
BS. They'd still be
Well,
there. They'd still be there.
And Scotland. No, I know.
Mate, technically the money's going to Glasgow, and you know it.
Yeah, I know it is.
Right, so moving on to the fun stuff. My second beer is Gender fluid.
What kind of
strawberry
brand are you
milkshake
buying
IPA.
here? Is
Well,
it
this comes in my.
is it an LGBTQ like inspired brewery?
It's. I haven't actually read the spiel on the can. These are from Two Chefs Brewing. This is in my box of beers that I got from. No, actually, I bought
Is
this
it
in
Pride
a
Month over
craft
in the
beer
UK
shop.
right now? Is that what it is?
Actually, it is. I think it. This is
There you go.
LGBT week last week because we did it for
last week.
Publicity.
Yep.
There you go, the teacher.
Thanks, Dan. And this stuff is
No
fucking
worries.
obnoxious, but I paid for it, so I'm going to drink it anyway.
Looks like it's already been through someone.
Yeah.
No, it looks like it's been exactly. Oh god.
Yeah, Two Chefs Brewing in Amsterdam. It's interesting. Read into that inflection, what you will. Right, so onto the fun stuff. Questions, rapid fire questions for Vin and Chris. Vin and Chris, starting with Vin and then Chris. If you were to be bought out by a member of Pixel Pints who is on this show right now, who would you be bought out by and why?
It's between Mitch or Burkhoff. But I'm going to go with Mitch because to be fair.
Sorry, half of that answer did not come through. So what was the reason?
Well,
Okay, yeah, like
Mitch doesn't care because all he heard was Mitch, and that was it.
Yeah, he does. No, he's zoned out.
I just heard Mitch.
because I could totally extort him and steal all his money later. That was no, I'm joking. It wasn't that. No, it was because he knows more about management, I guess.
Ooh, sorry, Burkhoff.
Maybe.
Okay.
No
Well,
worries.
then Matt, who's managed finance for the last how many years, and
In
me, who's
games,
managed.
I'm being specific. In
I was actually going to pitch to Vin recently, being like, "Hey, do you want some help on your project? Like, I'd be more than willing to help."
See, this is where I think.
Which then I saw his tweet of everyone going no, and I'm like, okay, that's.
This is where you get this kind of incestuous feeling in the games industry. It's like, oh, you worked on games? Oh, maybe you should come over here. It's like the NFL at the moment hiring coaches and assistants. Oh, you work with this person. Go come over and work for us. That's how you stagnate ideas rather than breed ideas. Thank you for. I just thought I'd say that because you didn't say me. So, Chris.
I'd have to choose Dan because he's local up the road from me.
That's a perfectly valid answer.
Exactly.
Yeah,
That's a
great.
reasonable answer.
That's fair.
You could actually have
He just
meetings
seems
instead of doing it over Zoom.
We could probably have meetings. Exactly, it'd be good fun.
Yeah, face-to-face meetings. Yeah.
In the pub.
Yeah.
Instead of Dan
Very
influencing
productive.
influencing the faces of children through education, he would influence them through games.
Well, there we go.
I mean,
Right.
you have a perfect
we could
test.
We could even make his game scientifically educational.
Well, you
Go
also
to all the schools, make loads of money.
not only
Sounds a lot
only
more
that.
boring
What,
by the second.
I was gonna say, not only that, you have a perfect age range to be able to test because he does have a little one that does know how to hold a controller.
Oh yeah, he loves.
He knows how to hold a controller. He also knows how to delete save files.
Oh god, yeah. So he deleted. So I was 90% through Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, and I turned the TV off but left the console on, and he's got the controller and was just mashing buttons. And what I discovered is he didn't only delete the save file from the main menu, he somehow uploaded the deleted save to the cloud, so then the cloud had no save. And I was like, wow.
What a
Like,
legend.
that's impressive. That's
He's a
impressive.
secret baby genius. He's
And so I'm never going to complete that game because I'm not going to play it all over again to get.
Hey
I'm gonna
Dan,
have to watch.
Dan, have you ever seen Baby Geniuses?
No, but
Okay,
maybe.
I would recommend
not
watching that film and then
Um,
imagine your baby. That's what I'm thinking about right now.
But today he was having my Switch, and he was like moving the Joy-Con joysticks and was like, "Oh, having a great time." And I was like, "Oh."
Well, he'd probably be fun to play the new Wii Sport, not the Wii Sport, sorry, the Switch Sports with.
Yeah.
Totally buying that. when it
Right.
comes out.
So
Yeah, me
next
too.
You're
next
gonna pay
question.
full
for-
price for that? Oh my god!
100%.
It should have been free.
Bowling.
It
Come
should have
on.
been freaking free.
That's still going to be $70 in 20 years' time.
The big question is, will it have the same theme song? The da 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 da. Yeah, it better have that same theme song.
Nintendo coming up with something new? Don't be ridiculous, Mitch. Come on. Come on.
Sorry, Breath of the Wild was so new, guys. It was like the most new game I've ever seen in my life. Like Horizon Zero Dawn totally didn't come out a week after that.
I'm glad that the story on Breath of the Wild was just so unique to the series. That's all.
Oh yeah, and like the open world, like it's not like I played one that was way more dense and interesting a week later. That
Right.
seems to have to be a sequel next week.
Mitch, stop trolling Evan. Right. So
It's a labor of love.
right. So next. Quick fire question. If everyone else shuts up, they can be quick fire. Chris, you first this time. A game you would only play if a friend bought it for you.
I like this question.
Probably the Tony Hawk's remaster.
Oh.
I love it. It's just I'm just not in a rush. It's like probably at the bottom of my pile, and I guess that's where I'm going with that question. So it's the bottom of my would play pile, but if someone bought it for me, I'd totally crank it out.
I'd agree with you too. It's like you played it and you don't need to play it again. But if someone bought it for you, I'd play it again.
I don't know, man.
Yeah, I like that. I like
Getting
that.
those skate tapes.
Oh yeah, getting those VHSs. I wonder if they're if digital copies this time around.
Maybe.
CDs, or they're just clouds now.
Now they're clouds.
Clouds.
It's clouds.
It's just the YouTube
Cloud
symbol.
Or it's the
Yeah.
Netflix symbol. It's whoever sponsorship bought that. That's what you need to do.
So obviously, no, as proven, no one listened to me, so they didn't shut up whilst Chris gave his answer and then started talking again. So Vin, a game you would only play if a friend bought it for you.
All right, I'm gonna. Mitch, brace yourself here.
Hold on, let me get the things down. Oh, The Last of
The
Us.
Last of
What?
Us Part
The Last of
Three.
Us Part 3.
Who says there's a Last of Us Part 3?
Oh,
There's absolutely going
shots
to be a
fired,
Last of Us
shots
Part
fired.
3. Get out of here.
We'll see. I have no idea. I know nothing.
Yeah. Why not make the game that will print money for Sony? And why kill off Days Gone 2 if you're not making a sequel to? Yeah. Get out of here, man.
Well, why not a studio that is known by name can just make any game and a new one, and probably just make themselves if there's any game studio that could make their own brand new franchise and people would still buy it just like they bought The Last of Us, probably Naughty Dog, Sony Santa Monica, all those studios can do it. So I don't see why they couldn't do something different.
Yeah, but the difference between can do and will do.
That's true.
Well, there's a difference in can do, will do, and shut up, you will do.
So,
I'm not following the
yeah,
rules.
the producer's is like,
Well, there's the shut up, you will do, and then there'll be the shut up, you will do from Sony, because that is a license to print money. Right, so penultimate quick fire question. A game that has ruined another game for you, starting with Vin this time.
oh, he's stolen my answer.
I've
know.
got one right off the top of my head. Dead Space killed Resident Evil 4 for me completely.
Ooh.
Just being able to walk and aim.
Complete.
I played Dead Space and then I went back. I was
yeah.
just like, this feels awful. I can't play this anymore.
So-
And Resident Evil 5 the same.
Oh,
So I bet you're excited for the Resident Evil 4 remake, because if they keep the same mechanics as RE2 and RE3, that you can walk and shoot at least.
That's a big if. But yeah, if you can't walk in Resident Evil 4 remake, no, that's the rule.
I think my guesstimation is it will be, because they did it in the other two. I don't know why they would make that stupid decision to say, let's not let you, let's not let them, let's not give the kids candy.
All the respect in the world to the Resident Evil 4 team, because they came up with the perspective thirds, over the shoulder, action adventure, sort of horror sort of genre. They invented that mechanic.
Action movie, genre movie type style. Yeah, for
So
sure.
well played to
Is
them,
that
but
the
Dead
Punch the
Space
Rock
just
one?
Perfected.
No, that's 5. 5 is Punch the Rock. Because it makes sense, because he's so bulk. He literally is more bulk than The Rock himself.
Chris,
Figuratively and
because
literally.
I just want Mitch to shut up for a second.
No, I don't like
Chris,
shutting up. After I've had a
game
beer,
that-
it's hard to do so.
A game that has ruined another game for you.
The Last of Us 2 has ruined The Last of Us 3.
Wow. There's a double whammy.
Right there with you. Right
Double
there with you.
whammy. Where's the game where it's no whammies, no whammies?
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
jeez.
Literally purely for one thread, and that's just story thread. Everything else, they nailed it out.
Okay, now I gotta know this, because you both are in unison, and yes, I'm breaking the rules, Keith. Kill me later. What is the thing about The Last of Us 2 that did kill you guys? What's the one or multiple story things that killed you?
Do we have a week to talk about this? Because I could break that game apart for days. I mean, I
Well,
am a
Mitch
massive-
did it for 3 hours, and you just gushed over
I
it.
did do it for 3 hours. I didn't gush over it. I went through the break points, and then they all talked. I was a host.
I listened to the first 10 minutes. I heard you gush a bit. I vomited in a bag, and then I moved on and stopped listening. Right. So the very last question for everyone this time, and Mitch, I'll start with you. There is a vicious and scurrilous rumor going around that I will be 40 this month. So, Mitch, you are 40. What game do you want to be playing?
I'm 40. Holy cow. I want to be in my bed with the headgear on And
Don't sound old already.
If you have ever seen Sword Art Online, which is basically putting the headgear, you lay in the bed and you go into virtual reality, I want to play a fantasy adventure MMO RPG just like that. Like literally, that's what I want when I'm 40 years old. And for clarity, that will be 12 years from now. So my hopes are big for 12 years.
Right, I'm going to go round on the screen on my side. Matt, you're next. You are 40. What do you want to be playing?
Let's see.
Final Fantasy VII is correct. Dan?
The second remake of the remake.
That's not coming out. I'm gonna be 50 by the time that thing comes out.
I don't have to wait till I'm 40 because I can play Horizon Zero Dawn 2 next week.
Oh, that's a good answer.
There you go.
Sony Pony.
Hey, I don't mind. I love that game. And actually, talking about a game that broke a game, Horizon Zero Dawn broke The Witcher 3. I can't play that game because Horizon Zero Dawn is night and day better in my opinion.
Here's a good one. Here's a game that broke a game. Horizon Zero Dawn broke Breath of the Wild for me.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense too.
We've already discussed this topic, Mitch, and you didn't bring it up. Right, Vin, you are 40.
Yeah, I mean, that's 7 years from now, so...
Is this game more of like show your age, if anything? Because we're trying to talk about things that are realistic here, and like we have to talk, and it's like 7 years from now. Okay, what's realistic in 7 years?
Okay, I got one. Maybe Sony.
6?
Yeah, maybe Sony will grow a pair of balls and actually remake Eco. That's what I want to be playing.
Ooh, nice.
They're cowards and they should do it.
What if Blue Point's doing it right now and you have no idea?
They're not doing it.
Well, they said they were working on a new game, not a remake.
The team is big enough; they can work on 2. Just saying.
No, they're not doing it. People don't care enough about Eco.
They're hiring enough for two. They're hiring enough for 2 team studios. Just saying.
No one cares about Eco. I mean, it's just hand-holding simulator, isn't it? Chris.
Wow, you're taking the shiv and just stabbing Vin right now.
It's great for lockdown. Like, I can actually hold hands with a person.
Now,
who wouldn't want to do that now?
That's the most depressing thing you've ever said, Chris.
Keith, you just signed your death warrant. You are never going on their show ever.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Chris, you are 40. What do you want to be playing?
I want to play. Mine's gonna be similar. I want like a VR that's like super HD, like 8K, ultra high definition OLED, sort of like Skyrim with branching narrative that actually affects the world and the decisions, and so it's like nailed into narrative.
Cool.
So the next Elder Scrolls game.
And it will be made by Acrylic Pixel. You'll be the director and creator of that.
It will be made by Big Money Big Phil. Okay, Keith, you ready for this? You are 40. What game are you gonna play?
We all know he's gonna be playing Streets of Rage 4.
Yes, which is also the game that has ruined other games for me because I cannot play any other side-scrolling beat 'em up now.
You would like Sifu. I think you would like Sifu.
I'm absolutely looking forward to the dot because how good Streets of Rage 4 was. I'm absolutely loving the look of Tales in Time. What is it? Shredder's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Oh yeah.
That'd be awesome.
That's on my fantasy, bro. That's on my fantasy.
But what I will say is about all of your picks, you're all wrong because it's all going to be GTA 5.
That's fair.
That's fair. That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
That's real.
Yeah.
All right.
We've not said that. Yeah.
Well, I guess
Definitely all will be playing it. Like no one's not gonna buy it.
Rafa will buy it again. I promise you.
He will buy it for all of us.
He will buy every. You know the question about who you would lend a game to and you would play it. Rafa will buy us all copies, so we all can play it.
I've seriously thought about it, but I was like, no. I bought it on the PS3. That's it. That's the only time I'm gonna get the money.
With you.
I'm
not.
I've only bought 1 copy as well. Thank you two for joining us for sure. We love having you. If you want to find if you want to find the duo over there, they are on Polygon Forest. You can find them on Twitter. You can find them on YouTube. They may not have more views than we do, but they have more subscribers. So we'll keep an update on that count to make sure where it's at when it ends. But thanks for coming, guys. And on that note,
We're out.
we're out.
I forgot to do all the social media stuff. Oh well, because
You're a horrible host. You keep forgetting, and you need to fix that, bro.
oh well, I'm the only one that posts on our Twitter and Instagram, so screw the lot.
I do it when we go live. Excuse me.
You know what's funny is I've actually liked Pixel Pint tweets that you've done in the Pixel Pint account because it pops up on my phone.